So today I'd like to talk to you about forgiveness. Specifically, forgiving but not forgetting. Have you ever felt so wronged that you could not fathom forgiving the person or persons you felt responsible? Have you ever had such a terrible experience that just the slightest thought made you furious? Were you able to forgive that person or persons? What about a case where you did wrong? Do you ask for forgiveness? Do you forgive yourself, or do you still harbor guilt? As a leader, do you think being a forgiving person is an important trait or worth your time to think about? We'll come back to these questions later, so don't answer yet. First, I want to share a story with you. I come from a long line of people who can hold a grudge. It's genetic. When I was 5 years old, my father passed away. He left a wife and 3 kids, as well as his own mother, brothers, sisters, and quite a few nieces and nephews. The pain that we all felt was horrible, and to a little kid, I didn't understand it. To be honest now, I don't think that anyone understood their own pain either. It was a very difficult time for everyone, and I don't think anyone knew how to comprehend it. I'm not sure how it happened, or what was said, or who did what. But suffice it to say, words were said and actions were taken that led to seriously hurt feelings. I couldn't tell you what occurred as I was so young, and everyone has a different version, I'm sure, but it resulted in a massive split in the family. As time went by, I grew up angry and frustrated. At some point, it became just as normal as breathing. This lasted for 30 years. 30 years. Then one day, I got a lucky break. I met the love of my life. And after some good luck on my part and really bad decisions on hers, we got married. After a couple of years of wedded bliss, she told me she had made contact with some of my father's family and asked if I would be interested in speaking with them. I thought about it. What would we talk about? Why talk now? Did they feel guilty? Should I? Eventually, I agreed. When the big day finally came, I was a few hours away from going to the field. I figured if things went south or got a little uncomfortable, I'd be able to bow out that way. But when we started talking, it was not the experience I was expecting. I found I had a lot in common with them, and I enjoyed listening to their stories about my father, things I'd never known about him. Before we finished, however, my uncle, my father's brother, he apologized for not being there. I was taken aback. When I looked at him, I saw someone who truly regretted what had happened and wished that they could get those years back. Initially, I thought the same thing. But the more I thought about it, the more I wondered what would have been different had things not turned out the way that they had. As I tossed it around, I realized that forgiving does not necessarily mean forgetting what happened, but it requires some work to get there. So why should you forgive in the first place? What does it do for you? Well, it may actually help you live longer. Psychology Today reports that when you hang on to grudges and hurt emotions, it causes the body to release the stress hormone cortisol, and it elevates your blood pressure. It can lead to all kinds of other terrible things such as weight gain and heart problems. Johns Hopkins University reports that unforgiving people suffer from higher rates of depression and post-traumatic stress disorder. It'll even make you more susceptible to catching something else that will make you miserable. Further, not learning to forgive can make you less trusting, and it can damage your relationships with others. They go on to report that people who do not forgive begin isolating the offenders. While the journal spoke specifically about how this impacted marriages, we can apply it to other institutions as well. I'm sure we all can look back at a coworker who let us down or failed to meet a standard prior to a suspense. Did you block that person out? I know I did. Building walls to block them off, circling the wagons around only those who I trusted. Imagine how that impacts operations. On the flip side, Psychology Today reports that being a forgiving person can increase your self-esteem and develop better relationships with others. Better relationships with others. Think about how that can improve things where you work. It reduces stress in your life. Sign me up! The Mayo Clinic reports that forgiving can actually lower your blood pressure, improve your heart health, and boost your immune system. I'll take more of that, please. So if exercising forgiveness is a good thing, then why don't we do it? What prevents us from getting there? Well, I think that lies in how we reflect on the experience. See, we may not have the faculties to actually figure out what happened. We may not be able to make sense of what occurred so that we can learn from it. And we can't get on with the forgiving part. Instead, we try to ignore it. We forget, and therefore, we don't forgive. What we need is a way to understand what happened. In Kerry Walker and Matthew Bono's article, A Better Approach to Developing Leaders, they argue that leader development requires a two-phased approach that relies on experiences and then a meaning-making cycle that helps leaders understand and learn from their experiences. This meaning-making cycle requires senior leaders to observe, to provide feedback, and to open a dialogue with junior leaders to help them understand their experience and learn from it. As the authors indicate, it's a cycle of observe, feedback, and dialogue to help the junior leaders reflect. Besides assisting in leader development, however, I think that we can also use this meaning-making cycle to help us learn how to forgive. Fundamental to its success is the interaction between the individual who has the experience and the individual who helps them make sense of it. In my case, although I didn't realize it at the time, this process helped me to learn how to forgive. If it wasn't for my wife, I don't think I ever would have been willing to speak with my family. Now, it took time and a lot of effort and patience on her part, but she helped me to look at things differently. She helped to listen to my side and provide feedback to help me understand the situation and how it impacted me. The conversations we had helped me to let go of some of my own anger and made me willing to open the door to them. Observe, feedback, dialogue, and reflect. After a while, I was able to look back at my experiences, to think about what happened to me and how it shaped me. It also helped me realize how I might do things differently if something like this happened again. Not just personally, but also professionally. As leaders, we sometimes get caught up in the idea that people get what they deserve. This is justice, and we bring it. There's nothing wrong with that either. It's our job. But did you ever try and forgive and forget? Did you tell others to do that? The next time you're in a situation like that, I'd ask that you think about applying a little forgiveness as well. You may be the one doing the reflecting. You may have to be the one to help make sense of the situation. Either way, a little forgiveness may go a long way. Well, we've talked about forgiving others, so now let's try something a little bit harder. Forgiving ourselves. One more story. Many of you may be familiar with the Bible parable of the prodigal son. In it, a young man decides he's through working and he wants his inheritance right now. So he goes to his father and he demands he give him his inheritance. Well, his father reluctantly does so, and the young man goes off. Soon the money's gone and he's hungry and destitute. He's in such bad shape that he's not even worthy enough to eat pig slop. So he decides he's going to go back to his father and beg him for a job. But when his father sees him coming, he runs out to him and he hugs him. He has the fine china put out, he's fixing barbecue, and he has a big party for him. The father has forgiven him. I often wonder, though, if the son ever thought, boy, I do not deserve this. One apology is not going to be enough. I need to do more. I don't need a show of hands, but I could almost guess that most of us in here do the exact same thing. I had a friend say something ridiculous and offensive once. He realized it, and he apologized, and he was forgiven. But that was not enough for him. He continued to apologize. He segregated himself. He sought out special punishment. He could not forgive himself. I think the meaning-making cycle can help here as well, but it'll require effort to seek out someone who you respect and trust to discuss what happened. You'll have to initiate the dialogue. In doing so, you create the conditions to help you reflect on your actions, remembering what happened, analyzing what you did, and then adjusting what you are going to do to help you forgive yourself. So when I started, I asked you a few questions about forgiveness, whether you could forgive others or yourself, and how important you think it is for a leader to be forgiving. What do you think about those questions now? Do you think you might answer differently? Can learning to forgive help you become a better spouse, a better parent, a better leader, a better person? I think it can. But learning to forgive requires understanding of your past. And building that understanding is not necessarily an individual event. It requires others. And it'll require some work. And it might require a lot of time. In fact, maybe we should think about practicing forgiveness, as it doesn't happen overnight. The next time you're wronged, or even you screw up, think about how practicing forgiveness can make a bad situation better. And don't just think about yourself. Think about how you can make the difference for someone else. Be the one to listen, to discuss, to help them reflect. Help them to forgive, but not forget. Thank you.